I can't hear you though.
Check, check.
Yay! I wore my patriotic
Yeah,
orange
I appreciate
goblin.
it. On your 4th of July weekend, you wearing your Orange Globe shirts, Johnny
Orange
Million?
goblin.
Orange. Okay, I couldn't see the other part. Yes, Orange
Yeah,
Goblin.
they're Doom sludge band from England, and this
Honest to
is
God,
their.
it sounds like a pro-Trump MAGA band. Like,
It really does.
yeah, because Orange Man, OMB, Orange Man Bad was already taken, right? So they had to go with Orange Goblin. I mean, it's a living. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. I was, for whatever reason, the update on my audio setup when I do the show from where I have to do it so that Philip Bittner can join us on my other computer. The update required was crash worthy. So I'm rolling in hot right now. Super exciting. And I have a cat crawling around my feet who desperately wants to know why he's not getting attention this morning because
They
I
all
was in
want to
I
know
was in
that.
wire pulling mode. That's always fun. Um, that said, so much.
Cables, let me help. I'm an
Yes, right.
expert.
I can get dangerously close to those things and chew on them. So lots to talk about. Obviously, this week has been a whiplash of SCOTUS rulings and responses. You guys know my lecture at this point. These things were set in stone in 2016, folks. And if you are upset about them and you did anything but vote to secure Hillary Clinton's win back then or to guarantee that we have control of the House and not just that we, in your district you kind of voted in the primary and then blew off the general or not quite thing, or I'm a little mad because my congressperson leans a little more Mansion and Cinema than I would like them to, but the only other option is an anti-abortion lunatic who wants prayers mandatory in school. Um, if if that kept you from voting during a midterm, or slowed your roll about it, or even allowed you to kind of talk in conversation in what you thought was sort of an honest way, an honest criticism about your own party, but actually just played into the hands of people to cry like, yeah, Obama wasn't that popular in the first place. Look at the numbers on ACA. It wasn't popular. 52% of people hated it. Now, a third of those people wanted it to go further, and that's why they didn't like it. And a bunch of those people, a few more of those people, about 8%, wanted a single payer element in it, like I did, but that didn't mean I didn't
Audrey
like the
Wellum.
program. Right. So, in essence, anybody who is floating the idea that, well, what I'm doing is just speaking honestly about I like my party warts and all, I like my country warts and all, understand that that is not the way the vast majority of the conversation that you're reading is being, or expressing is being read in the world. And it's also, when it is weaponized, and it's weaponized that not only do you not you don't it's not that you don't approve of the Mansion and Cinemas of the world. It's not that you don't think they go, that we need more left leaning or left of center people to really push back against this. We need a broader coalition, yada yada. It's not that they don't think you believe that. It's that they know that all it takes is your ire about Mansion and Cinema, for example, to make you forget that the entirety of the Republican Party is not only against what you believe, even in their base level, even in their normal establishment Republican style, but if you caught any of the Wyoming congressional debate where Liz Cheney is defending her seat against four Republicans, two of which are absolute Trump won the election, it was rigged
It's
fighters.
like an episode of Scooby Doo.
It's embarrassing. But the idea that you would somehow, because I think it's important to have a balanced conversation about what you want and the problems that your group has. Okay. But it has to be done on a scale of reality. Because if you're Nazifying people that just disagree with you on tactics in your own side who have the same goals as you, but differ on how it can happen and when it happens and how it happens will determine whether or not it can be swiftly overturned, for example, by a future court. And those kind of discrepancies, those kind of decisions, those kind of ideas of like, we got to protect the filibuster because if we do this, and the president came out this week saying he believes in a carve out for this and for voting rights, basically out of frustration and awareness that the Republican Party have gone off the deep end in many ways, in line, I would say, with his feelings about the Hyde Amendment, which originally was put there to help bring along, pro-life Republicans who also are pro-choice on board to not fight Roe v. Wade every turn or try to make that, anybody they put up a bullet train to getting rid of those rights. That is now gone. They are not fair players in this situation, and therefore the Hyde Amendment has outlived its usefulness. It functioned, it worked, it was helpful, but it stopped being helpful once the other side started playing fair. Line it up with what you would consider the Minsk Agreement in Russia between Ukraine and Russia, or the NATO founding agreement that Russia signed with them, which they apparently played nice on for about a decade and then just went, we were just kidding. That was never a real thing. So,
No.
I guess my biggest thing going into the fall is that you can talk about the frustration you have with members of your own party that are not even in your state, but you have to do it with a level of balance and discernment and intellect and logic that is based in reality. Because most of, statistically
It's a high
speaking,
bar, Hal.
I know, but most of the people that are listening to the sound of my voice right now don't live in Arizona or West Virginia. And so their frustrations with the Mansions and Cinemas of the world, for example, have no bearing on the culpability or the circumstance that Democrats in the rest of the country find themselves in. Because again, we are currently the minority party in the Senate. Now, there's an absolute discrepancy in the balance of power in the Senate. It is absurd beyond measure that Oklahoma, which is, by the way, as landmass, 41% Indian territory, in case you were following the other weird SCOTUS rulings this week, still has 2 senators and fewer people than a Chicago suburb. So we're already ice skating uphill against this issue. And so the idea that even Manchin and Sinema are our problem is, I'm sorry to tell everyone, an absurdity. It's a waste of your anxiety. It is not, there is no purpose to wailing and gnashing of teeth around Manchin and Sinema unless you're an Arizona Democrat and you're actively campaigning against them, or you have somebody there, or you're a West Virginia, or like you're in West Virginia or Arizona as a citizen. Everywhere else, you got no complaints about the Democratic Party in your state. You don't, not in any practical sense. You honestly don't. Your Congress people are busting their hump in a 220 to 210 split in the House. Even that, a hair's breadth. This is not an example of where the Democratic Party has convinced the majority of Americans, even though the polling shows that they favor these kind of things, that we are the trustworthy group to shepherd these things through and therefore should be given control of the government in these areas. You can say that it's all been, Republicans bashing Democrats over this time, but I would argue that never diminishes the vote of the person in the party. No Democrat is ever going to not vote for a Democrat because Republicans called them names. Ever. What's going to stop them is the demoralized feeling that nothing will change and they're not going to do it and blah, blah, blah. Even as their their Democratic congressperson would be facing a Republican in the election coming up, and that the cliff that Republican wants to take the country off of is an absurdity. It's beyond your, it's nightmare level as far as women's rights, gay rights, social programs. I mean, genuinely. The Republican Party, as part of their platform committee, has presented an idea that all social programs should be sunsetted every 5 years unless they can survive another vote. So, and they do it in the 5-year cycle is important because it can be in off-year elections, even around senatorial campaigns, when they know the turnout is low. Now, would the turnout the next time be very high to get people in? Yeah, but you would ping pong 6 years of people, and God knows how long it would take to jumpstart Social Security again, or Medicare and Medicaid again, or S-chip, or the Department of Education and public schools nationwide. Like, the time it would take to jumpstart those things once they were cadavered by this group means 8 years without Social Security, with the people caught in that system, in that time. And if you're saying you're willing to sacrifice those people because you think politically the world needs to know how awful your options are, then then that cruelty is on the same level of the Republican cruelty we have seen this week towards, from both the majority in the SCOTUS, the Republicans that back them, and the words of Clarence Thomas telling you what is next. I don't have a problem with people decrying decisions by Democrats or whatever, but you have to put it in context of being a tactical decision, because the platform is the platform, and we all agree where we're wanting to go eventually. The Republicans are, now material enemies of any of that progress. As a party, not like some of them, maybe as a wing, that's the platform. And yesterday, and we got to take a break, but yesterday I did a piece of the Wyoming debate between Liz Cheney and the 4 other people running. And the primary talking point of 3 of those 4 people right out of the gate was, we're not a democracy, we're a republic. That one person, one vote doesn't matter. And the assurance of you don't think that thought, which is emboldened right now, isn't going to have the freedom to just let its freak off the leash in future judgeships and stuff. It's insanity to even talk about a parallel. I'm sorry, but I'm done with talking about Sinema and Manchin as if they're the enemies of the universe. They're not. They don't even scale next to these people.
No, they're just lame.
They're just lame. And it's not something I have control over. What I do have control over is the messaging around, what's going on to some degree, how I will talk about the rest of the Democrats that are busting their butts to try and make something out of this, in spite of the fact that they have to deal with an Arizona Democrat and a West Virginia Democrat, which is different than an AOC Democrat, no matter what you do. We'll be back right after this. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. Miranda rights, tribal sovereignty, women's rights, gay rights, the right to not be fired because you're gay. They're all either on the chopping block or the chicken is running around with its head cut off because I'm Hillary butter emails. We'll be back. Okay, hold on one second. I will be right back. I had to use a temporary headphone and I'm trying to find my other.
Speaking of butter emails, I don't know if I've ever sent an email about butter to anyone.
I don't believe you.
I can't believe it's not butter. Flora is doing great, Betsy. Thank you for asking. I love butter. Wow, you folks went crazy with the butter mention. I think you haven't lived yet. Thanks, Brad. Manchin is a miracle for being elected Democrat from West Virginia, but he's down the graft enough to be a Republican. Oh, yeah. Definitely. Yeah, there's a lot of butter in an apple crisp.
What are you talking about? What in the world is this conversation? I'm glad it can go
The
that
chat
far.
and I have
Thanks,
turned
Stan
into
Bunny.
butter emails. Butcer. I was just saying I never sent a butter email. Phil, I've heard, or PHK, I've heard about people putting butter in their coffee, and
You've sent oiled up sext. I wouldn't doubt though.
yes, oh yeah, butter
Yeah,
sex.
forget it.
Have you
All
ever
right.
put butter in your coffee, Hal?
Yeah, of
I mean, I
course.
get it. I get a lot of those non-dairy creamers are really just oil.
Yeah, the bulletproof coffee I enjoy.
Oh yeah, isn't there like a whole
Ghee.
like a mega
We're coming back.
calorie?
Yes.
Okay.
Welcome back. Here I am running around like crazy. This was a whiplash week on a lot of fronts. The Cassidy Hutchinson story, of course, kicking off this kind of response from both Trump and the right about she's lying. She made up the story. The two agents who were in the car now say that that was a lie and that no such thing ever happened. We of course find out shortly thereafter that actually most of the reporters who were sniffing around the Trump White House post January 6th had heard the story themselves, just didn't report on it because they didn't think it was germane or it was too outlandish or it lined up with some sort of like their boss thought it would be sort of biased to go into that. And since it was just the word of these other guys, now that it's confirmed under oath by at least one person who it was related to, they're going back and talking to their sources, and their Secret
Wow.
Service
So like
sources are,
people had heard about this, but it was so nuts and
yeah,
so like
they're like,
it's just so nuts.
can we
I
put
told
this
my wife
behind us?
about
Yeah, right.
Lisa really tries to avoid a lot of news coverage for
I think that's
obvious
wise.
reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I told her about the um, the hearings and what was said, and she was both astounded and unsurprised.
Right. Well, we now have both CNN and Rolling Stone confirming from their sources that their reporters had heard these stories multiple times over the last year before Cassidy Hutchinson brought them up. They were never a part of a greater story until this point because, for obvious reasons, it was just a sort of anecdotal Trump dirt, and people were kind of over it, and it didn't apply. It was such a narrow cast story. But once she said it under oath that she was told this, and the guys and Trump pushed back on it and really narrowly threaded that stuff. Like he was like, they're saying I leapt from the car. Like the story he made up, basically he's creating this giant, he tried to strangle a straw man. He basically set up this hyperbolic straw man about what she said and then went to tear it down. It's an absurdity. It was silly. We did on my live stream at infotainmentwars.com, which is my YouTube channel. That'll take you right there if you want to subscribe. I went through the whole Trump interview he did on Newsmax about this. And it's very telling. We have a couple of rules, Sparksisms around, being media savvy, especially. One of them is anytime you see an incendiary headline, make sure you check the third, or in the case of USA Today and shorter paragraphed periodicals, the third, fifth, or seventh paragraph, because that'll be the yeah, but. That'll be the part where I know we said at the top of the article that, an asteroid is heading towards the Earth. But by towards, we mean if our galaxy continued on its trajectory from 1 billion years ago, but it wobbles, and therefore the wobble has taken us out of the trajectory, like that kind of thing. That shows up in paragraph 3, well after you've clicked and the ad started rolling. So this is, there are just areas where you get the yeah buts. One of the dead giveaways on a politician, when they get caught doing something, when the accusations against them are true, watch for the word outrageous, Because if they throw the word, this is outrageous. These accusations are outrageous because that's true, whether they're true or false.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
out.
They're not
Yes.
lying.
No, you're not calling the person a liar. You're just saying that sounds crazy. That's outrageous.
We agree.
Yes. Is it true or not is the thing. Well, that's why they avoid that part of it. And so Trump does a lot of that. And the other one is this hyperbolic straw man. You're not really you're creating an analogous story sideline to it. You're exaggerating what they said and then denying the exaggeration. And in the case of what she said was she argued with them. She said that they had told her, these two agents, his deputy chief of staff, who was on his Secret Service detail, and Bobby Engels, who was on the Secret Service detail, who was apparently shook up while they were relating this story to her because it had just happened. Said that Trump said, "Take me to the Capitol." He said, "We're not taking you to the Capitol." He said, "Take me. I'm the effing president. You have to take me to the Capitol." And then he lurched for the steering wheel, and then the clavicle of one of the agents. Now, what Trump's telling of it is that they're alleging that he leapt, from the car and started choking people. It's like he blows it up to an absurdity and then denies the absurdity. But the reality is that they're also doing this thing that he attacked physically. He was going to choke a Secret Service person. Now, nobody believes that. I mean, maybe he snapped. That's possible because he was losing it and he still is. But I think more than likely people thought he was one of these dudes who thought he could grab you by your shirt collar and go, "Listen, I'm the president. Hey, I'll tell you what's, listen here, see? I'm your boss. Now you get with the program, Charlie. The bad things are going to happen to you." That it was more of a grabbing of the collar kind of thing as opposed to a choking motion. But it helps that they weren't forthcoming in the details. And when she relayed it, she just told what they told.
The details.
Right. She just told what limited details they had given her. So that craziness, set off 24 hours of she's a liar. And because these two guys are saying that never happened, they're, by the way, not saying they never told her it happened, which is crucial to her testimony being trustworthy. They are not denying that they told her this. They are denying that it happened now, which is a totally different animal. Again, outrageous. It was outrageous. Yeah. That's outrageous that I would reach over and try to choke a Secret Service person. It's outrageous. Well, meanwhile, even Mark Meadows in stories contemporaneous to the time was saying that the president wanted to go to the Capitol and there was the security, Secret Service did not allow him to, did not want him to. Those stories were happening at the time.
What if he gone to the Capitol?
Oh,
come on.
All right. I mean, the idea was, I guess, that he charges in, "These people are all with me," and attack. Madness.
I don't see that turning out well.
No, obviously not. I mean, let's understand that he wanted to go. He wanted to take down the magnetometers. That's what she said. Which is let the people in because the guns aren't for me. They're not going to shoot me. He denied that too. He goes, "I don't want guns at my rally. They went ahead to the Capitol anyways." And it's like the way he twists the story you can tell he's been dodging the technicalities in life. Oh, thank you, Carol, for the super chat on our YouTube channel. Appreciate that. Hillary Clinton was easy. They had assassinated her character for 30 years. It's much harder to lie on the fly. Hence Biden, the doddering criminal mastermind who doesn't know where he is. Yeah, that's their problem has always been that they want to have their cake and lose it too. And the idea that, Biden, we got to take a break, but that Biden can't tie his shoes, but he's also running an international criminal enterprise.
Exactly.
He's the Inspector Clouseau of Dr. Evils. It makes no sense. And that's why it failed. We'll be back right after this. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. I want to talk about the other SCOTUS rulings that went through this week. No. There's so hopefully I can I'm gonna this is working okay right now. Chicago, are you hearing audio from us? Okay. I mean, they're there, so I hope so.
Yeah,
Doesn't
I'm not
seem.
hearing Chicago, but it's okay.
No, you're not going to hear Chicago because I've got echo cancel turned off.
Okay.
Because I have to route them another way because the software I normally use to route it had that weird collapsing mess thing
Gotcha.
happening stuff. So, yes. And Carol, thank you for bringing that up about HRC because that kind of goes into the idea of criticism versus, thank you, just straight up defamatory accusations.
Yeah.
Bitcoin bit the dust last week. Oh, watch for that to get worse. You know why? People are selling Bitcoin, and as they sell Bitcoin, it's going down. All right. Well, don't get me started on another topic. We'll get there. All right.
If and when you do, please do it in Jeff Goldblum's voice.
I'll tell you. I don't. Gotcha. Oh, the wailing and gnashing of teeth about the Supreme Court that I and people like me were doing in 2015 and 2016. That all of a sudden, because people are waking up to the boiling water that they are in, and the rest of us have been screaming at frogs to get out of the pot, to do something about it for all this time. And they're like, we've got to do something. We've got to change the filibuster. We have to expand the court. Like you only are asking for these radical solutions because you let go of the reins of the normal solutions you had for years.
Yeah.
You don't have to have radical solutions like we're asking for right now that may be the only way to fix this if you treated everything else with responsibility for the last decade and a half. Because this is the result of not just people, blowing off 2016. It's not because a lot of people are trying to lay it at the feet of Hillary Clinton and that she was unpopular and they had to run her and blah, blah, blah. The reality is that there's the midterms along the way during the Obama years when Democrats gave control to Republicans or they lessened their numbers, or even in 2020 where Biden won an enormous lead, but House members lost in some of these crucial states and brought us down in number, that the focus on, or the purity test around your congressional candidate versus your senator versus the president has caused particular damage in the House, has created an extra challenge in the Senate, again, because Manchin and Sinema are the news, not the entirety of the Republican Party, amongst Democratic voters. And what really gave the Republicans, like Mitch McConnell, the ability to go, you know what, I'm going to keep Merrick Garland from being seated, I'm going to hold that and give it to Gorsuch, was not so much the electorate around the presidential election even. It was the fact that every 2 years after the presidential election, Democratic voters for over a decade and a half have said, those things aren't important for me to show up. They're not important enough. Either I don't think it's that big a deal, or if it does happen, it deserves to happen to show everybody how bad things are. This, and again, I will always put this on us because I'm trying to motivate us to act. And the only thing right now diminishing Democratic votes anywhere are Democrats saying that it doesn't matter, saying that that it's Hillary Clinton's fault or Ruth Bader Ginsburg's fault. When in reality, the Republicans currently are more afraid of the Trump MAGA crowd, their physical danger from those folks, than they will ever be of the far left base of the Democratic Party. They don't fear them at all. As a matter of fact, they count on them. They count on them to cause enough rifting in the Democratic Party to drive the vote down a little bit, to give them an area where they can keep purple states red. That's the plan. Mitch McConnell is not afraid of base Democratic voters. He's counting on them. People who call themselves base, anyways. I would argue that you're only the base if you show up every time. That's really the base. A lot of times that gets decried as, quote, the establishment. Well, you get to establish something the more often you show up. That's how it works in life, in every situation. Unless you're in a permanent psychological 15-year-old state where the favorite person that comes to your birthday party is the one that only comes every 8 years and only when they like the food. In China, they have a phrase, "Zhou Pengyo," means meat and liquor friend. They're around. They're always around when there's meat and liquor. So my message is to Democrats and Democratic voters and independents who lean that way, or even have the nerve in a bar to say they care about things like women's rights and minority rights and securing Social Security, for the future generations, not letting someone like Donald Trump determine the rules of engagement for the military, soften them so much, again, that there were more civilian deaths from drone strikes in the first year of the Trump administration than there were in all 8 years of the Obama administration. And the policy that Hillary Clinton was presenting was identical to the Obama policy. And they went, coin flip. And there are people that are dead because coin flip. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to be unforgiving about that stuff, because all the wailing and gnashing of teeth that's happening right now should have happened years ago, when people, and should happen going forward. Because the only thing that will solve this in any permanent sense, that will guarantee these rights that have been stripped away, that will rebuild what has been torn down, is 6 years of rebuilding. I mean, nobody thinks that a hurricane comes through and the rebuilding effort is as fast as the hurricane. Ever.
Nope.
So that it's increasingly frustrating for people to act like, because they themselves are infrequent, unreliable voters, they themselves can feel they are in some sort of position to demand that the party behave in a way as if they were reliable, as if they were the consistent voter. And then apparently their mind is boggled when we get to, and by the way, this happens to Republican activist crowds as well. It's happening to the maggots right now around Donald Trump. The party is stiff-arming Trump, and there are a bunch of his activist groups that are trying to keep their claws in it as long as they can. It is the same social impact that's happening on either side of this of the party. The difference is I don't care what they're doing. That's not my party, and I don't agree with their goals. So if they tear themselves to pieces, it's popcorn time. However, I do care about the goals of the Democratic platform, and especially the minorities and marginalized people who are going to be at the receiving end of these rights being diminished more than any group. So anybody who feels like you can phone this stuff in, or that it won't take constant and never-ending improvement to get what the goals we're trying to accomplish for the betterment of, by the way, not only Democratic voters, but everybody in the country. I believe these things because I think they're good for humans, not because I believe they're good for my side. There was literally a guy in the Wyoming debate yesterday that we went through who was like, I represent the people who vote for me, not the people who didn't. In the Wyoming state legislature, he's like, I vote the way the people who sent me there vote, not the way that will help the other people. Like, again, they have this attrition, winner take all attitude because they don't know how to run an inclusive government, and they have no interest in doing it. And the idea that you would kind of like six of one, half dozen of another, two legs in the same pair of pants, uniparty story is diluted at this point. So we know about the Roe v. Wade warning was coming. Many of us, like I said, we've been talking about it for years. That just giving them a toehold on the Supreme Court was enough to put it in jeopardy. But this week, for example, there was sort of a fight between Gorsuch and Kavanaugh about Native American tribal lands rights, about overlapping jurisdictions that undermine the sovereignty of Indian land in this country anew. And when you've got somebody like Neil Gorsuch pushing back on it vociferously, by the way, apparently he's one of the, this is one of his key issues where he believes in the permanent sovereignty of Indian land in the country. And yet Neil Gorsuch, obviously the liberals dissented and he went with them on this. So it was a 5-4 ruling. Kavanaugh essentially argued in the majority opinion that essentially the idea of sovereign land that he likes beer. And Squee told him that the idea of sovereign land is kind of a myth.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, going forward. And the idea that we could the idea that you would allow the Senate or the House to be taken by the Republicans this fall. And again, before the leak of the Roe documents, before the Roe opinion, before the leak, what was the general story that you heard on the news about Democrats' chances this fall? That it was it was going to be a shellacking. Mm-hmm. We're going to lose. Now, if the same voters that showed up to vote for Joe Biden just by the numbers showed up, they don't even have to all show up. If the same majority that showed up, when Hillary ran, the 64 million in that zone showed up, that would not be the case. It's not that those voters didn't die. They didn't leave the country. They didn't all join Joel Osteen's church and have a come to mega Jesus moment. They still exist. Those folks were prepared to, apparently, let the Democrats, quote, get shellacked in the fall because who cares? Because what have you done for me lately? Because, blowing off the fact that we're no longer in Afghanistan, we have an infrastructure bill and bipartisan gun regulations for the first time in 26 and 30 years, respectively. That, Biden half the deficit, half the unemployment during his first year and change in office. We have the first black woman on the SCOTUS. This is the most union-friendly president. All the things you're checking towards. And the only reason he hasn't gotten more is because we lost congressional seats in the House, and we have fewer. We have a hair's breadth Senate majority only given to us by 2 independents who caucus with the Democrats, but can't even run as Democrats in their states for fear they won't get reelected. And the VP doing the deciding vote. But what is the language you hear? We have control over the entire government. We have control. That's the phrase. You hear it all the time. We have control over the entire. Okay, we don't have a veto, or we don't have a filibuster beating majority in the Senate, so we don't have control there. We need the vice president's vote just to get halfway. And again, as Democrats stand, the vice president's vote brings us to 49 in the Senate, not 51. 49 Democrats, if we include the vice president. But what is the conversation been almost the entire beginning of this year? The Democrats are going to lose this fall, even for Democrats. Why? Did they disappear? Are the goals not being chipped away at? Are we not making steady progress while fixing the mess that Trump set up? No. But the same crowd that walked away from Obama and convinced Mitch McConnell that nobody will be there to have his back. That if he tries to go a step further in any of his plans, we'll be able to shut him down because his own voters won't be there in a year and a half. That's why they don't fear Democrats. That's why up until the Roe leak, and that's why they freaked out about it. Up until that came out, they were going to skate into controlling both the House and the Senate this fall. The question is, will this be enough to quote unquote inspire Democrats to show up?
Yeah. What happens when the conservative dog actually catches the car he's been chasing?
Right. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. The Hal Sparks Radio program, mega worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. Did you hear that Trump? Everybody's saying Trump's going to announce on July 4th. I can't wait till that doesn't happen.
Just you wait. He's supposed to have been reinstated as president so many times now. I don't know what to do with myself.
Right. Well, I mean, this last one came from Alex Jones. So,
what good as gold.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's right from the horse's ass.
Have you ever seen the Alex Jones rant sent to death metal music?
Yes, I have.
Pretty fantastic.
I agree. Hold on one second. Good Lord. Hold on. I didn't get a chance to update my titles this morning because I was dealing with that issue today. There we go. Good Lord. The bit rate on this is insane. What is it?
I don't think I told you how I went to go get a consult with my tattoo artist for my next Spidey tattoo.
Right.
And he had a cancellation. So I got it done already.
Oh, what's up?
Woo!
Nice. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
Nice Spidey tattoo.
Thank you. Nice Spidey suit.
We're coming back. They're playing it. I did a piece on my live stream yesterday where, because I like to do long form stuff on there. So if somebody posts a clip, I do the whole thing. I do end to end. So I'm not accused of taking stuff out of context. Most of the time, though, it gets tough sometimes because there's so many lies. Even in a 9 or 10 or 12 minute clip, that's a good 45 minutes of show, not including jokes. Not including me just being silly, which I like to do. Sometimes you end up spending time just like in just debunking, multiple articles, just debunking what they're saying. Even the articles they post themselves. That's the fun part. So, but one of the big mysteries that I have been dealing with is where some of these talking points come from. Where did they get this stuff? What in the hell? So, I
feel like you got an answer.
Well, I've got a couple, but this week, I don't know if you're ready. I know Johnny's ready. I know I'm ready. But according to sources, Trump is going to announce that he's going to run for president on July 4th, because it's the most American thing he can do. And
so American.
Yes, obviously he's going to do this at the base of Mount Rushmore, and JFK Jr. is going to fly an airplane out of George Washington's mouth and land by his side and announce himself.
Are going to fly out of his butt.
Yep, and then Trump is going to pull off his face mask, and it's going to be Andy Kaufman, and we're going to find out that Trump is actually like a version of a Tony Clifton character that he's been doing for
this has all been performance art
for years. Right. If it was, I would be, you know what the relief that would go through this country? Like people would be
Oh, that'd be
mad,
so amazing.
but they'd be like, oh, thank God, that's not real. But that source was, of course, Alex Jones and the newly revived Q account on
Oh, they're back.
8chan or whatever it is. Yeah. Well, I mean, Ron Watkins' run for Congress has failed miserably, so he's gone back to typing on the internet and saying
Oh,
cryptic things to set off these folks. Now, will the Q thing have an impact? No, not anymore. Will Alex Jones's prediction come true about Monday? No, I seriously doubt it. And by the way, if Trump does, he can no longer take money from Save America PAC. So look for the next year his financial problems to get worse and more stories about the RNC having to pay his legal bills to come out. That's hilarious. So in and of itself, like, dude, go ahead, walk into that rake. That said, not happening. But one of the stories that he brings up and that Greg Kelly and some of these other folks bring up is about Ashley Babbitt, that she was murdered on, and that this was an illegal act and yada, yada, and she was an innocent victim. And I saw the video, you saw the video, everybody saw the video, everybody's seen her previous interviews, all the backstory around why she was there, what she thought she was accomplishing, who she thought she was with, all that kind of stuff. So the idea that they keep saying that is mind-boggling. And and to me feels like they're using the death of this deluded woman as a shield for their desires. That they're using it to vilify the people that she and they were there to attack, and that they are somehow, using the fact that she was killed as an example of how Democrats want to treat MAGA supporters. You know what I mean? Like that's the plan for everybody. Meanwhile, castle doctrine stories and these open carry laws notwithstanding, that they seem to feel that you should be able to shoot just about anybody if you don't like how they're looking at you. But somehow Ashley Babbitt's off the, that's out of bounds. And I saw this week why and where this story comes from. Marjorie Taylor Greene had on a reporter who was a reporter for Epoch Times, who was one of the people, became an Epoch Times reporter, I would say, after the fact, was there documenting what was going on, filming all this stuff.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say they had the documents.
Yes, they kind of do, but they kind of didn't. And they didn't show his video because they thought it would be too graphic. So they showed other video that doesn't show what they say it shows. I mean, it was the goofiest thing. People watched it yesterday with me on my live stream. We were all just, it's mind-boggling. But Marjorie Taylor Greene did an hour-long interview on her podcast, which I'm pretty sure she does from her office at the on House grounds at the Capitol.
Okay.
About this guy saying that, this was an assassination and that it was all, set up and she was an innocent victim. And she was actually crawling through the window to stop the crowd. She had deputized herself as a cop to stop the people from trying to break through the window. That's why she punched a guy and went through the window first. And this is, coming from Marjorie Taylor Greene, is it that surprising? Is it that outrageous that she would believe something like that or even further that? No, not at all. As a matter of fact, the more people believe that those are actually her feet in the doofus bomber footage, the more it makes sense that she would do these gigantic distractions away from culpability and try to reinforce the reasoning behind January 6th, which is also what Trump does. But the fact that he brings it up and that Newsmax hosts bring it up and they just let it sit there, but they don't explain what they mean, why they think she was an innocent victim, what led them to believe that. Because like I said, in theory, they've all seen the same stuff we've seen. It's because of this storyline. It's because this thing that Marjorie Taylor Greene pushes. And let me tell you that Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz it behooves us as Democrats to make them the face of the Republican Party, not only because they are unpopular and insane, but because it's true. that they are the seeds of the movement that's happening within the Republican Party right now. That if you see something percolate to the top and you with very few details, all the details are being held by these folks, by MTG and Lauren Boebert and these lunatics. And I'm not here, and nor do I have any interest in defending the Republicans at all. But I want people to recognize that that is the bullet train they are on. That's the direction of the Republican Party. There is no middle there. There's some people who are still in office that you can negotiate with in their time in office, Kissinger, Cheney, and the like, who will negotiate in good faith as establishment Republicans with conservative ideas that you may differ on their economic or social policy concepts, but they'll have an honest conversation with you and they'll come to a consensus about what you and they can get past their constituents, and we can bond. That's democracy. I'm for it. That's not where the Republican Party is going. And the illusion that somehow we can cede ground in any upcoming election to any of these folks is insanity. The irony is that it's going to be Democrats in the state of Wyoming that are going to save Liz Cheney.
Probably.
No question. They're not going to. And again, that goes to the concept: could there ever be a Democratic, party member elected to the single congressional seat in Wyoming? No. I'm going with no. I've got not anytime soon. Eventually, sure, absolutely. Because but as long as the vilification continues both within and without the Democratic Party, it's not going to happen. But the fact that we find ourselves defending the daughter of Dick Cheney in the state of Wyoming as the steady and sure voice of simple constitutional behavior shows you how far the Republican Party has fallen, and that any footsie with the idea that it's 6 of one, half dozen of another, there's really no difference between Democrats and Republicans. It really puts a lie to that phrase in the most stark way possible. I'm hoping that Philip Bittner can join us during the next hour. That's we shall see what we shall see. He's obviously traveling, and there's a lot going on there. But next hour, we will definitely have some updates about the war in Ukraine and our actions. Biden's trip overseas, both conversing with the G20 nations, the G7 nations, and with NATO. And the EU. Huge progress. We'll be back right after this. It's the House Sparks Radio program, mega worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. Don't forget, vote.org. Make sure you are registered. Make a plan to vote. We'll be back. Hi, chat room. I feel like I've been blazing by without talking to you because I've been dealing with the tech aspects of things. So hello and hi, and I see you, and you're lovely. There you go. William says, the cowards allowed Babbitt to go first as a sacrifice. They all knew she would most likely die. That's what these patriots think of women, disposable. Okay. Well, interestingly enough, William, I don't doubt that they trampled one of the women to death to get past her in the tunnel. And in the case of Ashley Babbitt, the argument that this reporter and the footage that they showed, which I don't think conclusively shows what they said it shows, and he wouldn't show his footage, which shows it clearer for some odd reason, which makes no sense, because he could stop the footage at the moment she shot two, right? Supposedly Ashley Babbitt punches this one dude, broke the window. He was going to go through the window that she went through and was shot through. And she punches him in the face and goes through the window. Now, arguably, I would say that she was simply trying to crawl through the window over him. That wasn't a punch. That was simply just crowd reach. Even if it was, she was punching him in the face so she could be first through the window. So it makes she was a willing participant in that process as well. So, and by the way, there he is. Yay, Philip's joining us. Hold on, we'll bring him in.
All right, bear with me a sec. I've got to run to the potty.
I don't need to know that. That's
No?
you know, no, no,
It's
no.
number
That's
one.
I don't believe you. Hold on one second. Why would I ever trust that that's the truth? Okay, where's my scenes? There they are. And then I'm going to bring up Philip while you're there. Hold on. I need to bring him in here. No, 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 no. There he is. Hey, look at that. Hi. Oh, you're in a different location. And yep. Audio's a little choppy, just so you know. Yep. Yeah, I'm not hearing you much at all. I know I hear you enough to know you are speaking, but I can't hear what you're actually saying. So, wait, that sounds better.
That's
That sound
probably better.
Yes, it is. I can hear street noise, but we can hear you way better. Yeah,
Okay, great.
all
Oh, I
good.
just figured since it's a war of independence that I would you know, and since this is a war against colonialism, just as
Hmm.
our Fourth of July was, that
That's right.
that I would do this.
That's great. Love it. It sounds way better. And Johnny just ran off to use the head, and he will be back in a moment. And then I'll bring us all
Okay.
back in. When Okay, thank you.
I can close the door here.
You're totally good.
That'll kill some of the street sound.
Okay.
A little bit better, probably.
A little bit. Little bit.
Little bit.
Little bit. Yeah, it sounds much better, so you're fine. Again, considering the fact that where you are, and we're just happy to know you're good.
Yep,
There we go.
all good.
We're coming back. He's playing the top of the hour stuff. I won't be able to feed it to you because of audio issues right now. So, and yeah. And here comes Johnny, so I will bring you guys back in, and then I got to bring him in.
Hello.
Hey, Johnny.
There he is.
Hey.
Welcome back to the show. Joining us live from Ukraine is our dear friend Philip Ittner, 1L, 2Ts, at Philip Ittner on Twitter. If you want to follow him, he's been vlogging from Ukraine and posting stories from there. He's been our eyes on the ground. He's given us someone to care about and worry about directly on the ground there, but instead of just the abstract caring for people who are there. We got somebody to clamor about. And I will say that he did indeed live up to his promise to get his beard tightened. And yep, he had it pulled in. It's looking fabulous for those of you that are joining us on the live stream. And of course, Johnny Million is here. And he will be going through questions put forward by our chat room, either at Twitch, twitch.tv/HalSparks, or on infotainmentwars.com, which will take you to the YouTube page. Now, first of all, catch us up, Philip. I a lot of times, we start into the discussion about what's going on in Ukraine, but I always want to make sure that we check in on you as a human right now and where you are and what you're doing.
Well, I'm back in Kiev. I've got an apartment here, and then I keep an apartment out in Lviv, at least for the time being. And so I'm back from Odessa. I'm in Kiev, and it's it's summer is here. It is relatively hot, not as hot as it is for folks out on the front lines, but it's we're getting in the 90s Fahrenheit. So it's summer in Kiev. It's lovely, but we're still we're under the constant threat of air attacks.
Right.
I got out of Odessa just in time to miss a couple of attacks there.
Right.
I don't know if we talked about Snake Island yet.
We touched on it during the week, but not on the radio show. So yeah, this week was a big turning point for both Snake Island and the tactical withdrawal from Severodonetsk. Yeah. Johnny, you don't know about Snake Island at this point?
No. Are there snakes?
Theoretically.
I think it's the shape of the island that is how it gets its name. But
right.
It's the Johnny. It's the island where at the very beginning of the war, the Ukrainians were positioned there, and a Russian warship rocked up and said,
I remember
Surrender.
that.
"You better surrender." And I can't say what they said exactly in response on the radio, but they said, "We're not going to
Yeah.
surrender."
Right. In so many F-bombs. And that became
Yeah.
a stamp that is sold now currently.
Mhm.
They were
Right,
also, the
yes.
idea is that they were, the first story was that they were killed. They were actually captured. And then some of them, or if not all that were alive, were returned. They
Yeah.
were released. That said, the Russians took Snake Island, have been using it as a strategic point. They've been using it as a launch point. They've also been using it for aerial reconnaissance, drone launching, and all kinds of stuff. And apparently, the Ukrainians, I don't know if anybody knows this, have gotten some longer range munitions lately, and they put them to good use and drove the Russians off the island this week, reclaiming
Yeah.
Snake Island.
And the Russians claimed that they were withdrawing because it was a show of good faith.
Now, there's some
Uh-huh.
good questions in the chat already. Is Snake
Okay.
Island where King Kong and Godzilla live?
No, that's Skull Island.
That's Skull
Ah,
Try to
thank you.
keep up. That's embarrassing. I saved those questions, by the way, for the Wyoming congressional runoff debate. That said, one of the things I would like to talk about is a couple of the statements from the Russians about both that and their continued issues about, because we've got Finland and Sweden getting the okay to join NATO.
Yep.
The European Union is fast tracking Ukraine as a member state.
Yep.
Every goal that Putin set up at the beginning of this is collapsing worse than if he had just left it alone.
Mm-hmm.
It would have taken a lot long. I mean, God knows if NATO, if Sweden and Finland would have ever joined NATO or felt they needed to
Mhm.
without this. And the ability for Ukraine to join EU was definitely in the cards, but a ways off. Now they're speeding up the entire process. Language wise, and then of course they did it as a goodwill gesture. They gave back
Yeah.
Snake Island.
Yeah. Oh, the Snake Island thing. Yeah. I would be cautious. I would caution a little bit of patience when it comes to joining the EU. They marched the European flag. The European Union flag is now inside the
Right.
Ukrainian parliament, symbolically. So, but they have a lot of work to do here before they can join the European Union. The European Union learned its lesson with Greece, I think, in a lot of ways,
Right.
during the Euro crisis. And you can't just let somebody whose economy is as
Has
problematic.
as many issues.
shall we
Yes.
say.
Yeah, totally.
So it's not going to happen tomorrow. It is going to be fast tracked. That's good. That's good for the Ukrainians. Snake Island, the withdrawal. I think the withdrawal. One of the things that tickles me about the withdrawal of Snake Island is all of this. Oh, we didn't retreat from Snake Island because of Ukrainian artillery fire. We did it as a good faith thing. But then the day after they left Snake Island, they had to call in jets to
Right.
blow up stuff that they left behind,
Right.
indicating that they left in haste.
Yes.
So it kind of draws into question the whole concept of, we just withdrew because it was,
we don't really need you. You can have that.
So-
It's fine. And
Yeah.
and by the way, we still have the rights to the water around it, so that we can get the oil and gas out of there eventually if we want to.
Yeah.
So it's really
It could, what it's really being seen as is a potential step towards eventually opening up some sort of corridor for shipping to come out of Odessa, because the harvest is currently. When I drove up from Odessa, I drove past many fields that were currently being the harvested, and so the harvest is in this year, but they have to get it to market, because if they don't get it to market, then they can't plant 2023's year of crops. and
Yeah.
that's when we're going to potentially see a real stress on the food supply, world food supply. One way or the other, I suspect that much of the grain that is being harvested this year ultimately will find its way to market.
Yeah.
But will it happen quickly enough for them to then plant the seeds for next year's harvest? And
Right.
that's when we're going to know whether or not there's going to be a food crisis. Not this year, but in 2023 potentially.
Right. One of the ways we can handle that as well, and that is, it looks like they're working to handle that, is both Canada and the United States are increasing our grain output, and hopefully that will mitigate the number that is diminished if this, if there can be some stabilizing, of at least the farmland in the western part of the country over the next year, and it won't be as big a crisis as people are concerned it might be. That said, that's if the Russians don't decide, as as a sour grapes attack, to just pepper the fields with bombs just to stop food from going out, because they are arguing, like we talked about on the Solovyov and what's her name, the woman who from RT, saying starvation is the weapon we're going to use. That
Margarita Simonian.
Yeah.
Vile thing to say.
Yeah. So they're basically saying we need starvation is our best weapon. That'll be the thing that motivates the West to drop the sanctions and deal with us, because without us, these people will starve to death. And here's the problem they have. This is, I think, the issue they have. You could almost believe that there's a group, mostly Germans, and maybe some Rand Paul Americans, MTG types, that think if we just went back to the normal thing, the oil flows and the grain flows out of Russia would kind of stabilize economically and help get things back to normal relatively quickly, or would solve this problem. The problem is that there's no reason to trust that they will or can do that, because again, the sanctions against the oil refining or the oil extraction companies are going to stay in place regardless. Exxon and Chevron, all these countries are getting out. The Russians do not have the technology to export that oil on their own. They may the cut and barrels may be just a factor of incompetence more so than some sort of strategic chokery. And the same thing is true with farm stuff, because they don't have the technology for the advanced giant ag business that happens now. It requires a lot of computational and delivery issues that are gonna fall apart without cooperating with the West over the next couple of years. It is going that way. The world is going to have to adapt to a world without these resources over time regardless, because Russia's not going to be able to do it on their own, and they can't be trusted to play in the sandbox.
Yeah, well, and in addition to that, the Russians have a vested interest in maintaining the food crisis, not only because they're hoping that it'll bring it'll either fracture the West or drag the West to a negotiating table, or force the West to put pressure on Ukraine to get to the negotiating table. But it's also because they're stealing it.
Yeah.
The Russians are stealing a lot of the food that they come across. They are so they know that it is a seller's market, as it were, because of this crisis that they themselves have created. So I'm just looking it up here, where there's a ship that's taking center stage in this.
Right. Yeah.
And it's in Turkey. Yeah, it's in Turkey. And vast quantities of Ukrainian grain stolen by territories now occupied by Moscow. And they're tracking, the Ukrainians are tracking this. And it pulled up into Karasu, this port in Turkey. And the Ukrainians have been saying, hey, you're dealing in stolen goods.
Right.
So they're trying to get that not to happen. But the Russians they see a financial benefit, not only a strategic benefit in this for them. So,
the interesting thing is that you're on the one hand, the Russians are engaged in, and this is extraordinary. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. On the one hand, the Russians are engaged in choking off foodstuffs to people that they think they can manipulate, or that the West will care about, so that if we starve those people, the West will stop the sanctions against us. They'll have to, otherwise those people will die. So they're willing to actively starve those people as a manipulation point, as an act of war to stop the Western sanctions. And at the same time, steal the grain that Ukraine would be sending to those people and give it to allied countries of their own as a manipulation point to keep them on the team. So that if India or any of these other countries or even China, to keep them from absolutely coming out against Russia, that one of the manipulation points is that we can still supply you with grain. It's not our grain. We're stealing it. But if you're going to get it from anybody, you're going to get it from us. And so they're literally stealing this grain to starve those people as a manipulation point and selling it to these people to manipulate them into supporting them in this circumstance. It is a double-edged starvation sword.
And
it's kind of amazing.
cynical.
Yeah, we got to take a break. We'll be back right after this with more of Philip Ittner. If you go on YouTube, look up Philip Ittner, Philip, 1 L, and Ittner, Ittner. You can find his YouTube channel. And just look up Philip Ittner, Ukraine. That'll take you right to it. We'll be back right after this. It's the only way I can tell people about your blog without doing the 1993 http:// Right.
Right. What else have we got going on?
Yeah, and Ankara. Yeah. So
I'm those vlogs. I moved over to doing more like highly produced vlogs, and they're really
their work.
Their work.
Yeah,
it's hard work, and so I haven't been as diligent as I wanted to be because I want to do them right.
Yeah.
But anyhow, we'll see.
Don't make perfection the enemy of the good.
That's right.
I know, but I'm also I might transition back to doing kind of straight to camera vlogs kind of stuff. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. We'll see what the people want.
Exactly.
Give the people what they want.
Mm-hmm. But not what they think they want, which is a trick that most entertainment.
Right, but always be true to yourself.
That's right. Within reason, so you're not navel gazing. All right, yes, we'll be back in 20 seconds. So, okay. Okay, I'm sending something out right now. I'm tweeting something out real quick. Welcome back. Philip Ittner is still with us. We were talking about, right before we went to break, the fact that the Russians are using grain as both a starvation tool and to bribe countries into effectively helping them. Increasingly, though, while a lot of noise has been played about Severodonetsk and the area around Lysychansk and the argument that they've suffered immense losses trying to get Severodonetsk for almost no strategic worth, is again another one of sort of like a Mariupol kind of moment for them that boggles the mind of most people who are following this from a strategic military standpoint, that they are just spending ammo and human lives on their side, securing areas that don't give them any strategic benefit. I mean, it's not like they're getting access to roads where they can get supplies to other areas they intend to take. It seems largely ego-based. And, is that what we're really looking at from a standpoint where you have the idea of a true motherland from the Ukrainian side, people actually believing that they want a country where you don't have the kind of legal system where, Griner, the WNBA star, is being tried under, because that's what Russia imposes once they come in, right? That's what comes part and parcel. What they're really fighting against is the colonization of them and the adaptation of a Russian system of governance and judiciary and resource management. That what Russia does. If you want that in your country, say so. I don't know anybody who would. but the Ukrainians are really fighting back against it. Not just their natural identity, their existence as a people. So does Griner's story and what's going on? I mean, the Alexei Navalny stuff, does that play into the story around Ukraine right now?
100%. I mean, the Ukrainians want a proper judiciary.
Right.
That is a huge part of what it is that they're fighting for, and they are trying to clean up their legal system, and they're doing it actually. They're actually doing a pretty good job, from my understanding. They have a ways to go, but they still have they've still been doing quite an awful lot, and it's important to them. And
Right.
look, again, I keep going back to this other point about this whole thing is that unlike some other countries in, say, Eastern Europe, that kind of glided into their post-war, post-Warsaw Pact situation. I don't mean to be glib about it. Everybody had their issues that they went through, but some more than others. And the fact that these guys were earning their victory, earning their independence,
Right.
through the loss of so many of their young people, and such cost in people and treasure, that the Ukrainians I talk to are saying it has to be for something, it has to mean something.
Right.
So there's a lot of talk that, like, when this is all done, we are going to clean house when it comes to corruption. So,
Right.
and I have every belief in them that they're going to do that. You can't go through a trauma like this without making it count for something. So,
Sure.
but yes, I think the legal issue is a big part of it.
Right. So for those of that haven't been following, Brittany Griner, the WNBA star who had 2 capsules of cannabis oil vape cartridges in her luggage, most likely to deal with the fact that she is 6'9", plays basketball for a living, and one of the ways that she probably deals with joint issues and inflammation and the like is cannabis oil. These are not cartridges to get high off of. She's doing, like this is medicinal marijuana in its classic form, right? And they not only are charging her with having it, but trafficking in it, like exaggerating this kind of thing. And there's all sorts of racist undertones about her and the fact that she's a married gay woman, and on 100, like 100%. But basically, they're just playing this up to make it as scary as possible so that they can trade her for the Lord of War.
Victor Booth.
Yeah. So, and I have to say, when I heard this story, Philip, I'm curious what your feeling was. I was like, do it. Who cares? Dude's not gonna. He's not a threat. He's not a mastermind. He's not a sniper who managed to do this stuff. He's not going to have the same connections he did. Effectively, he's useless for their purposes to some degree at this point. Maybe he can make some deals between them and Iran or something, but it's not like there aren't other people that could do it too.
Well, this is when we start to discuss whether or not jail is meant for rehabilitation or punitive,
Right.
because I think there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of families around the world whose loved ones would still be alive today if Victor Booth,
if it wasn't for this guy, it wasn't around. Right.
flooding the zone with weapons, and many of them illegal, against the Geneva Convention. He's a bad guy, and he was the purveyor of an awful lot of death around the world. And so I get where you're coming from in terms of, like, he's not a threat, but he should be punished for his crimes. So I sympathize with Griner completely, 100%. And then also, I believe it's Mercer.
Yep.
The guy who's the Marine who's over there, and he's
been accused of being a spy. Right.
Yeah, he's stuck there. I 100% sympathize with the families of those two families, and I sympathize with the people both of them who are sitting in Russian prisons, and I've been to Russian prisons, and they're not something to take lightly. So I completely 100% sympathize with them, but you can't play the Russians' game for so many different reasons.
Hmm.
One, again, I think Putin needs to be punished for his crimes. But secondly, if you let them do this, they'll just do it again.
Right.
The next time an American transits through Russia, is in Sheremetyevo or one of the other airports around Russia. What's to say they won't grab that person because they
Oh,
know
I
that this
agree.
tactic
I think
works?
the only thing that saves you from that is that there won't be a next time for all practical purposes under
Yeah,
Putin or anything else. Is the idea that, like, look, let's just get the last few out of there because nobody's going there anytime soon. And anybody that does uh, is there. It's not like they weren't warned. This is a totally different thing. She was grabbed right before the war.
yeah.
And she's being, as was the dude they're accusing of spying. These are people that were like kind of lead ups. They were definitely going to be used as pawns, it seems, because they'd already made their decision to do this.
Hmm.
So I think anybody else who finds themselves in that situation, um, then you're talking about a broader issue with an American going abroad and doing some awful on their own and having some level of responsibility for it. That she and Brenner are not in the same category, I don't think, at this point. And like I said, I agree that this guy, in a just world, would probably just be removed from the earth in the most painful way possible. However, I'd rather have her alive than that feeling. And I also think there are other ways to get that guy to have his comeuppance in the future that once she's safe back in America. That would be my thing. Like I don't think this
I
guy's
I understand that argument. I understand
yep.
that
It's
argument
the
completely.
it's the Pol Pot situation. Like Pol Pot died, wealthy and in bed or whatever. The that's always a chance you float when you trade someone like this for other people. It's just a matter of, and again, what's the reason for punishing a guy like that, but that you value human life? And if these human lives are going to be prematurely ended or in danger because of his existence, also, then they go into his death list. I think if you don't do something about it. So that's my feeling about it. I think that's how it'll
It's
end
not
up.
that there's not an easy answer to it.
Nope.
I hear your argument. I think there's validity to it. I think
Hmm.
we're going to have to agree to disagree though, because I followed Victor Boot even
Right.
before he was captured. When I was a CBS producer and radio reporter
Yeah.
in Moscow back in the late '90s, he was already on our radar. This guy, and
Yes.
he did some horrible things,
Yeah.
created wars for profit repeatedly,
Hmm.
um, and stoked, created wars, stoked tensions, flooded zones with weaponry, all so that he could profit. And it's he's I. This is where the
Yeah.
question is.
Yeah. Right. I know it's I like I said
He should
I don't
the
I
dude
would not
should be
presume
punished.
it's yes. I agree. We are well. We got to take a break. We'll come back and we'll talk about more of this stuff. We got more questions. There is a bunch of questions that I have
Yep.
stacked up. I
Sure.
know Johnny Million has
Yeah,
some.
I see him.
So we'll
I see him.
so
I
yeah.
saw a
So
few of
we'll
them.
right. So we'll be back
We'll
right
get
after
right to
this.
that before
It's
we
the
come
House
to
Parks.
loggerheads.
Exactly right. It's the House Parks Radio program, mega worldwide. We only have tactical differences. We never have any philosophical or ethical differences. That's how it's done, folks. We'll be back right after this.
I wish I could increase my volume. I don't know.
Yeah, that's I brought it up as much as I can on my end.
Let me see if I can do something on
Sounds
mine.
okay to me if that makes any difference.
Yeah, you sound fine to me. It's just
Are they
hard
saying in
to
the
tell.
chat that you can't be heard? I didn't see that.
No, it's just a little like they think it's a little bit quiet. One of the
Okay.
things I could do is, and I don't know how loud people are, whatever, but I could bring me down a little bit, and therefore people could bring their overall volume up on their end if it helps.
Don't bring me down.
Bruce.
Kinky Streets hears everyone fine. Thank
Excellent.
you, Kinky.
Okay.
By the way, thanks everybody for subscribing and all that kind of stuff. I apologize if I am missing some of the stuff as it goes by because I'm battening down hatches everywhere else. So thanks for. One of these days, I'll have a separate tech that just worries about this part of it, but not yet.
And would they care as much as you? I mean, really?
Could anyone? I doubt it.
I see all these people saying, "Don't go to Russia." Yeah, if you're an American, don't go to Russia.
Yeah.
I would not step foot in Russia right now.
No.
I speak the language, and I used to live there, and I have many good friends there, and I have a support network there. But no way,
Dude, I wouldn't go to China right now. And I have friends there, lots of them. And we're not at war with them. Like in the West. Welcome back to the show. Our chat is full of questions for Philip while he's over there. He's live from Kiev right now. What's first up, Johnny Million?
All right. First up from Tim Farrell. Can you please ask Philip what effect winter has on the invasion, especially in the light of Zelensky saying it needs to be over by then?
He didn't say it needs to be over by then. He said he wanted it to be over by then. I think winter, there's a couple of factors about what winter will mean. They're still going to be able to fight in winter, but it will slow down.
Right.
There's a lot of factors when it comes to the changes of seasons and the winter coming in, the cold coming in. I think he's I don't want to second guess what President Zelensky is thinking, but it might have something to do with the fact that also, in addition to that the winter is going to cause a strain not here in Ukraine but in Europe. The European Union is going to have to tackle a very cold, potentially very cold winter without the natural gas that they normally rely upon from Russia. So they're going to have to find some way to heat their homes in Europe, and that might, that could be a political factor that affects things on the ground here in terms of the war, because Europeans might start to balk at the fact that they're having to suffer through exorbitant costs for heating their houses or going without heating, and that's going to be difficult, So I think that's primarily what Zelensky was looking at. But in terms of the war, they've fought in the winter in the past. They can do it again.
That's right. Let's grab another one, Johnny, while we can.
Okay, so from Connie Kelly, are any Ukrainians trying to go to jobs and live normally while all this is going on?
You broke up a little bit there, Johnny. What's that?
Are any Ukrainians trying to go to jobs and live normally while all this is going on?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. 100%. They're doing the best they can. I spent the afternoon with a Ukrainian friend of mine, who sadly though is the head of a business here, and it's not that he can't go to work and continue to maintain a normal life. It's because his business has dried up because he can't get clients. He has an international client base, and people are not. They're not coming. He runs a school, so they're not coming here he runs a language school. People are not coming here, so he has a staff that he has to keep, paying and things like that. People are doing their best to maintain a normal life, and in many ways, many of them are able to maintain it. It's very different on the other side of the river in the actual combat zone. It's also, it's just financially things are difficult because of any number of things. Like I said, the repercussions of being in a war zone. But absolutely, people are doing their very best to try and maintain some form of normalcy. And people are, you can adapt. It's amazing what human beings are able to adapt to.
Right. They don't really have a choice, especially when you're talking about the fact that they are the breadbasket of Europe, and the whole conversation about grain should let everybody know that there are farmers getting up every day, like farming in the eastern part of the country, like maybe 60 to 100 miles from the front line, trying to plant and
Yeah.
salvage and transport crops, knowing full well that just their grain trucks could be mistakenly or intentionally targeted by Russians, who want to pretend that they are either military or or simply just to stop the food transport. That they're doing that every
Yeah, and
day.
the stoicism of them is amazing. And when I spoke to a farmer down outside of Odessa, and he told me, yeah, about a week ago, there was a Russian missile that got knocked out of the sky by our air defenses, and it not came down in our neighboring field, and we all had to run and try and stop it from burning up my neighbor's field. So
Right.
and he was just nonchalant about it. He was like, yeah, that happened. You know, we did our
Mhm.
best to stop the fire. We saved most of the field. That was his priority. So, you try and live as normal a life as you possibly can.
Right. Yeah, go ahead. Let's see. Yeah, go ahead, Johnny. I'm just gonna let you field them for a minute, Johnny, while I deal with the other chat in here.
Okay.
Because you can just fire away once we get to the end of one of them. Go ahead.
All right, so Ed's 3D Tech is asking if HIMARS are changing the calculus.
Yes, they are changing the
Yeah.
calculus. The more of them that they can get in here, the better. There are at least 4. I'm betting there are already significantly more. They are also getting this new air defense system,
Mhm.
which I think the acronym is HAMANS. It's similar to the Patriot, but not the same, or say the Iron Dome. They're going to get that, and they're desperate to get anti missile air defenses.
Mhm.
It looks like they're going to get them, but the HIMARS, yeah, the HIMARS are the ones that are going to be a significant change, because if they're able to actually attack the Russian artillery and outrange them, it's going to the hugely
Yeah.
significant.
It's going to change that,
Right
and
now
that's
it's an artillery duel.
yeah. It's one of the reasons why the Ukrainians are holding certain supply lines and supply roads more than they are worried about holding towns, because they know they're going to be able to move and position these things and then constantly do this push march starting in August. That seems to be the counteroffensive. That I would like to say that. So the Pentagon announced on Friday, and Biden announced this when he was overseas, that we're sending $820 million more in aid to them, and amongst them is these NASAM systems.
NASAMS. I
Yeah,
just looked it up myself,
NASAMS. Yeah. And those are mid to long range air defense systems. They're a huge deal because they keep both the larger unmanned aerial vehicles and the helicopters and jets from Russia out of the territories where they might be able to hit the howitzers, for example, or any of the other placements, and that's crucial. So once those get in, it saves the Ukrainians from those attacks. So let's we got other questions too. What do we have, Johnny?
We do. Carl Alessi's asking regarding a strategy of reflagging merchant vessels as U.S. ships and escorting them with our Navy. It worked during the Iran-Iraq War. Would it work in and out of Odessa?
No, probably not.
Right.
There's nothing coming out of Odessa at the moment because of not only the blockade itself, but because of the mines. So you would have to clear a corridor for safe passage. You'd have to send in minesweepers, and then you'd set up a safe corridor. The Russians have eyes in the sky. They would not. That no one would fall for that. It's a great idea. Maybe there is. Look, there are many people who are a lot smarter than me when it comes to issues of that nature. But I don't think that we would be fooling anybody if we just changed our flag.
Mhm.
It's yeah.
Won't be enough.
They know what
Right.
was up. No.
Yeah. Also, just so you know, too, the
And both
movement
sides have laid mines.
right. Well, let's grab another question, Johnny, because I know we have a bunch. So
We
I,
do.
I,
So,
I was about to get into a
Connie
rabbit
Kelly
hole.
wants to know, can they get the harvest across the border into Poland? I assume she's talking about wheat.
Hmm.
Yes, that's one of the routes that they're looking at. Poland and up to the Baltic. There's another idea of, and not just an idea, but they're trying to implement a way to send it up the river system, up the Danube, for example. There are lots of different options that are being looked at in terms of getting the grain out to market. And they've got a brand new storage facility, storage system. There's new technology that's being implemented here so that the grain storage will not spoil, and they can keep the grain supplies uh, well into winter, well into January, February kind of region. But that's not the problem. The problem isn't that they can't get it to market. Ultimately, they will be able to get it to market. But the problem is if they're not able to sow next year's crop, which
Yeah.
is normally the cycle is you sell you get you harvest your year's crop, you go to a broker, you give the broker your supplies, the broker then in turn pays you, you go and you start planting next year's crop. And they only have until the end of September. That is about as late as they can go before they can crop the 2023 crop. Before they can plant, if they don't plant it by the end of September, then there will be no 2023 crop, and
Right.
that's when we will know the iceberg is on the horizon, and we're headed towards it. But human beings being resourceful creatures, I suspect we will either supply the Ukrainians and subsidize their 2023 harvest, their crop, or we'll find a way to compensate them for this year's crop, and they can do that process themselves. But one
Hmm.
way or the other, um, it's not this year's crop that's the problem.
Right.
It's next year's crop.
I mean, there's definitely some losses, but they're material. It's I think 0.7% of the world's grain from this particular harvest period has been diminished because of what's going on. Again, you're looking at 3 to 5% possibly next year that would be caused by this, and that's crucial because of the volume of it. Once you're talking about billions of people, and the grain itself, specifically wheat, any diminishment in that, even from weather, is a difficulty, and that's always been an issue. And then you've got, China losing arable land at an incredible clip, so they need food and grain storage because they're facing a starvation issue in a couple of years, anyways. So yeah, absolutely. Let's grab an early break so we can come back, because I
Okay.
know we have more questions, and if we get into one more, it's going to bring us over into that other thing. So you're listening to the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide, on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT820.com. And of course, the show is available as an hour-long podcast cut down by our lovely friends at Sexy Liberal Podcasting Network. Steph and Chris, hi Chris, put this together, and you can absorb it that way. Also, Sexy Liberal shows are coming to Chicago and your area. Go to sexyliberal.com. And I have a live show tomorrow, live streaming from Burbank, from Flappers, for
Yay,
patrons
flappers.
and other folks. So I'm back to doing shows there, and we'll talk more about that later. Okay, we'll be back. Ta-da. All right.
Take down the magnetometers. They're not here to hurt me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I got news for him. Anybody who watched the Warriors knows they don't necessarily have to show up with that idea. They can come up with that idea while they're there. And and the problem with true believers, and this might be a question too, Philip, for either now or another time, but the idea of true believers in Russia, once stuff starts to go south, they turn on each other in a way that is way scarier than your opponent ever does.
Oh yeah, that's coming.
Yes.
That is coming.
Mm-hmm.
And in some ways, it's already started.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's a very good question. Andy Townsend asking the question about the the difference between the gauges between Ukraine and the rest of Europe. They are working very hard on making that happen.
Hmm.
The problem is that
Thank you,
because
Chicago.
Ukraine being part of the Soviet world, purposely this was done during the Cold War. They kept the gauges different, and they're working very hard in Ukraine to correct that.
Hmm.
It's a good question.
We're,
Am I going to visit
we're back.
Poland on my way out?
Hold on.
Yes.
You won't be able to hear the happy song, but it is playing right now. I apologize.
Oh, good.
Sing it for us, Hal.
The sky so blue. It isn't like to say I love you. Chugga chugga choo choo. Woo woo.
Woo, woo.
Smile together.
I hope that you like cereal.
Yay! Welcome back. You were listening to the House Parks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. Part of our happy ending is the fact that Philip is joining us safely from Kiev right now. I saw we have a bunch more questions for you, but I saw one go by and we hadn't touched on it yet, which is the how do we counter the impact of the messaging that Russia is using to mess with our political system and our media over here? I think I even saw a reference that I feel like House Parks, am fighting a one-man war over here about those talking points, and we only yesterday, Julie Davis is posting from Russian Media Monitor that they were using Marjorie Taylor Greene's tweets as
Yeah.
on the Channel One show, and then Tucker
Yeah.
Carlson is in wherever he's in Brazil right now, saying that the United States arrests political prisoners because of January 6th.
Okay.
Yeah. So those talking points, what I generally do when I see a story, if you get a visceral response from reading a headline,
Mhm.
if you go, oh, that just makes me so angry or sad, or double check it,
Yeah.
because
Mhm.
that's what they're really good at, getting you to elicit an emotional response, because emotions are much easier to manipulate than ideas. So, but there's so many tricks that they play, because they study us, that we are
Yeah.
enemy number one for them, and they spend all the time
Yep.
studying every little fault line. And that's why I say what the Russians do is they will find a way to divide us, and they will get in there, and burrow in, and try to push that divide even farther and farther apart. So if you find yourself looking at your fellow Americans and saying, oh, the heck with them, or that makes me so absolutely livid,
Mhm.
furious, sometimes it's completely legitimate, because we have people,
Everybody
a
has
lot of
issues.
people with there's some crazy ideas in the United
Yeah.
States. But I just be cautious of that, because that's what they do. That's
Right.
what they do more than anything else. Is
Yep.
they will find a litmus between two, something that'll divide us, and they will do everything they can to make that divide even
Yeah,
wider
to
and
hit it with
wider.
a
So be
splitting
careful of
maul. Right.
that. Yeah, really
That's
is.
right. So okay, now yeah, I got that one introduced. Johnny, grab me another question from the chat, if you would, please.
Sure. Jill Carter wants to know if Phil plans to write a book.
I do plan on writing a book. There's a book and a potential documentary.
All right.
That's been floated out there, and I have never written a book before, so I'm nervous about it, but I think it would be a good thing to endeavor. But there has to be peace here first. So
Right.
we have to get there. We have to get there
You-
first, and then I'll look back.
You don't want to do a movie like The Social Network before any of the major stories break.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead. All right, Johnny. What else do we have?
So Grumpy Cat wants to know if Philip saw the video of a Ukrainian missile that destroyed a Russian arms depot in Popasna in the Luhansk region.
I did see that. Yes, I did see that. I think that might have been HIMARS. In fact, I'm
Hmm.
pretty darn sure that was HIMARS,
Right.
because that is not really in the range of a standard weapon. So, earlier somebody asked, are they making a difference? Yes, they absolutely are. I see somebody also asking about Lyshansk. Look, it's probably going to fall. It's probably going to fall.
Hmm.
But Hal brought up a very good point earlier in this discussion, in that they are making the Russians, the Ukrainians are making the Russians pay for every single kilometer that they gain, and they're doing that on purpose. They're
Hmm.
they're 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 sapping their mini material. They are making them. They have to pay for every inch that they gain, and all the while the Ukrainians are getting ready for the counteroffensive. So,
Yeah.
um,
There,
yeah,
there's also a new polling that came out. 89% in polling of Ukrainians, and this would include arguably folks that may have been on the fence initially before the invasion. Uh, uh, Disagree totally. This is, they have those sliding scale of 5 options. Are you kind of for it? Are you
Mm.
kind of against it? Are you neutral? That are totally against ceding any territory to Russia after this is over, including Crimea, Luhansk, and Donetsk, the new republic area. They want everybody out.
yeah,
That is national unity. That 89% in a legitimate poll actually asking people.
Hmm.
That's pretty definitive. It's not one of these phony,
yeah. They do need a win though. Something
yeah,
has to happen soon, because Snake Island was one way of doing it, but I think, I mean, look, Ukrainians are tired of this war. There's no two
sure.
ways around it. But they're not going to lose their will to fight, because this is an existential threat for them. The Russians have made it very clear that they don't just want to colonize this country, hence my flag. And remember, Ukraine is fighting for very much the same thing that we fought about in 1776, the right of self determination and not to be colonized.
Hmm.
Um, they know that if they lose this fight, that the Russians want to destroy the concept of a land called Ukraine,
Right.
and subjugate it back into just being another tribe of Slavs under the thumb of Moscow, and that Moscow
Russia
is
has
going to reverse what
literally
it used to be
uh,
for.
Putin's the Russian embassy in Jakarta, I think, sent this out a message about what the purpose of the war in Ukraine is, which is um, they say it's going according to plan, and the plan involves 10 years of war,
Yeah,
Yeesh.
not just Ukraine. Like Ukraine's part of it, but the next decade is about Russian wars of aggression in the previously held Soviet territories. That's the plan. The special operation, the reason they're calling it a special operation in Ukraine is not just because they're idiots and it's a joke, but also because they want you to think of it, or the Russians to think of it, as a minor aspect of the greater activity that they're going to take place, because all of these are going to be special military operations to reclaim territory in line with the Peter the Great nonsense that Putin was talking about a couple of weeks ago. That the war with Sweden was him taking back territory that was already ours. It was not claiming territories that was somebody
yep.
else's. That's why they're calling, one of the other reasons why they call it a special military operation, because they're just taking back land that they believe is already theirs. 10 years, 10 years, to quote Jeremy Piven in Grosse Point Blank. 10 years.
Yeah, no, they are openly getting back to the point where they are saying that they want to be the dominant power on the planet,
Yeah,
basically. That they keep banging on about, we don't want a unipolar world, which is what they think, post Cold War America was this unipolar, and they said, "Oh, that's terrible. That's awful."
This also didn't exist,
but
and
they're
it's a
all for it.
cartoon. Right.
Yeah, they're also, but they're also all for it if they're the ones that are the unipolar
Yes.
power. You know, they took a good game about multipolar world because that lets them get involved. But if you listen, if you listen to many
Listen to what they
Russians, there are
say.
huge
Right.
sectors of Russia themselves that say that we are a special people, that we are a unique and special world power,
Right.
and that our way of life is the best way of life, and we should be exporting it.
And by the
There's
way,
an old joke.
when people
We have the time.
there's save the old joke for a second. When there's a
Yep.
when everybody talks about China and the China Russian alliance, one of the reasons why there's a wick that's been lit on the potential for that, where it will blow up in their faces, Wile E. Coyote style, is because the CCP Han Chinese crowd feel the exact same way. They talk about a multipolar world, but what they mean is them in charge. That's always been the story. They've been telling it for the last 12 years in particular, and Russia's been doing the same thing. Before that, they were whispering it. Now they're saying it out loud. And Russia and China supposedly, this multipolar world eventually will pit them against each other in a way that I don't think people in democracies can even comprehend, even in the context of the Iraq War and stuff like that, because it's a totally different scale. What was the joke?
Okay, the quick joke is basically a man immigrates from Russia to Brighton Beach, and he's there for 15 years, and he doesn't learn to say a single word in English, refuses to learn English. His kids come over to see him and say, Dad, what's it like living in America? Have you assimilated yet? And, what do you think? And he said, well, America's okay, but and they say, why haven't you learned any English? And he said, well, why haven't they learned Russian? I mean,
Yes.
I've been here, 15 years, and the Americans still refuse to learn Russian. It's
Right.
very frustrating. You kind of gist of the joke,
Right.
And that's the mentality. That is ultimately the mentality.
Well, it also lines up with the whole idea that what's her name, Maria Awfulness, was saying that that it was a wry comment about famine's going to save us, which has now become a rallying cry. A sarcastic statement has literally morphed into a venomous attack on the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Just amazing.
Yeah, and the fact that they'd be willing to do it.
Right. We're running out of time, and I want to thank you, Philip, for being with us again today, and that you're safe. He's back in Kiev. Yeah, absolutely. At Philip Bittner, at Johnny Million. You don't have to put the one on there anymore because we know he's number one. He doesn't have to tell anybody about it. Nicholas, thank you for the super chat right at the tail end. Thank you guys for your support of the show. I appreciate it more than I have time to tell you sometimes, especially on days like today where I'm ice skating uphill, dealing with tech issues. But we will hopefully, Philip will be able to join us Wednesday on the live stream again to kind of check in midweek on the progress. There's obviously a lot that's going to happen over the month of July as key up for what looks like a giant move in August. It's going to be a very frightful summer in terms of these things. So we will try and keep you guys posted on it as much as possible. Appreciate you guys. Take care of yourself and take care of somebody else. Again, Nicholas Gaming, thank you so much. Where do you stand now on Biden stepping down and letting someone else run? Not happening. Just for the record, to answer your question. We'll see you guys next week.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
One second. And thank you, Chicago. Yep, and we're clear. Hold on. There we go. Excellent. Now we can go back to just ourselves. There you go. It's always funny to, end the show afterwards or whatever. But yeah, he's looking at questions right now. I have a couple right now. By the way, Les is smiling, trying, said the editing on your videos is exceptional, for the record. So in case you're dialing back the tech, Ed's 3D Tech also mentioned the USA is already supplying Europe with liquid natural gas. That's totally true. It's just a very complicated process. And the process of turning it back into gas over there is the thing that they're not necessarily set up to do as well. They've had these
I can
natural
turn
gas
most
pipelines.
anything back into a gas.
I've heard that. That is absolutely true. Kevin says, "Don't go to Russia." Ask said, "Does Putin throw borscht and break his dinner plates?" Like Trump. Yeah. If he can lift them, that's the thing. We don't know if his arms work right now, I suppose. And then we got Funky Buddha's question about the combating Russian propaganda over here. And then Brett Savage says, "I'm so happy we have a president that doesn't kiss ass for Vladimir Putin and little Kim Jong-un and other dictators." Yeah, it's a nice shift. People take it for granted, and you can't. You can't. Caviar on the wall, says Temple 1219. So it is, this. I mean, this is going to be. Do I think it's going to go on for years? No, I don't. Do I think it's going to go on for months though, and get more intense, and then there'll be these kind of odd back and forths? Yes.
Yeah, sadly, I agree. I don't think it's going to be. I don't think it's going to go years and years. But I was hoping it would be over by the end of this year, and I'm starting to fear that it might go into the next.
August will let us know. The real we will know sort of in August.
The counteroffensive. We
Yes.
will know when the counteroffensive is properly launched by the Ukrainians, and we see what the Russian reaction is. I think it is entirely possible, and I don't want. I am always.
You want to get your hopes up,
all.
right?
Yeah, but I think it is entirely possible that when they get all their ducks in a row and they launch a proper counteroffensive, that the Russians will melt away. Morale, we know morale on the other side of the equation is just really low.
Right.
The Russians are miserable. They do not want to be here. They are being treated like crap by their command. It's just. I will turn on a light. It's horrible. So I think it's entirely possible. I think it's entirely possible when the Ukrainians really start raining down all sorts of pressure on the Russians that they may fold.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, does that mean trouble for Georgia and Chechnya, and a renewed focus on building up in Belarus and forcibly taking over that country, and then putting continual pressure over the next few years on Latvia, Lithuania, and Ukraine from the north and south of those countries because of that? Because Lukashenko has been, there's been this back and forth with him where he's trying to look like a tough guy, and then at one point look like he could probably even out. And it seems like it's hard to read. It will be, because you can't trust what they're saying or what's being said. But a part of the thing about Lukashenko is it looks like he might think of himself as maybe a potential post-Putin leader.
Successor to Putin.
Yeah.
I mean, look, Stalin was a Georgian.
Right.
It's not unprecedented. And Belarus and Russia are very similar. But Lukashenko, I get the impression in Russia that Lukashenko is not very well respected.
No.
He's always been a lapdog for Putin, and he's farcical. The stuff he says, he's almost a caricature of a dictator. And I don't think he's got respect in Russia that would allow him to get. But then there's nobody. Kasyanov, they're not going to let a Chechen in the Kremlin. Forget that.
Right.
Shoigu, Lavrov. I mean, who steps in when Putin inevitably is out of the picture? And I don't think there is anybody, because it's purposely been done that way. Putin did it that way on purpose. Make him absolutely essential.
And this goes to sort of the Trump alignment aspect of why they think the same, why they think favorably of each other. But the Channel One show that we're always watching that has this kind of constant rotating cast of lunatics and power seekers
Yeah,
that they in their own
the
way
Kabuki theater.
yeah, but this might be a version of the Apprentice for the Russians to see who might be
Oh yeah.
somebody, even if it's just a Trump type, where Solovyov, whatever the dude, that it's him, or that it's somebody that's been a regular on the show that's one of the
Yeah.
generals, or that he grabs one of the guys that's been like, we need to nuke everybody, make them the prime minister and run as the president in a Trumpian kind of way, to think maybe we'll do, we spent so much time convincing the Russian people that Trump was kind of a good guy for us. Maybe I could run as a Trump in this country, and that in and of itself creates, an internal thing that they have to deal with. So it looks like that's what the parade is. That's what that show looks like. Who could be the
It
most
could be.
Putin-esque?
Could be. Well, and Soloviev himself is, I mean, he's got a dedicated following, but he's not. He's also not widely. He's I mean, he's more Tucker Carlson than he is Trump, I think.
Right.
And hopefully, we don't ever see Tucker Carlson in the White House, but
No, we
yeah,
will not. Yeah, fear
no,
not.
I don't think we will either.
But that doesn't
He's
mean
too
they won't.
extreme.
He's too
Well,
extreme?
yeah,
Okay.
I think he's too extreme.
Okay.
But democracy doesn't really matter over there. What the people think doesn't really matter. If the powers that be in the Kremlin and in the what's called the Silovaki, which is the which translated is strong men, the men of strength. They're the ones they're the power behind the throne, and they're the ones that support Putin. And if the Silovaki want to put a figurehead in the president's office who will shout and jump up and down and do fire and brimstone, if that's what they decide to do, then we're off to the races. But the thing is, I mean, Putin is a mob boss / czar / king /
Yeah.
and he's done that. He's created a system in Russia, which makes him integral. And I'm definitely, and we've talked about this in the past, I don't think there is somebody who can step in.
Right.
I really don't. I think when Putin, one day to the next, I fear that Putin may just up and disappear one day.
Right.
The cover story will be that he had a medical something, and or whatever.
Right.
He'll be gone from one day to the next, and then we got a real crisis. Then
Right.
we have a real serious problem in Russia.
Because who runs
Russia
in?
is too
Yeah,
big.
the same problem we had in 91. Like if it does collapse, who runs in and steals the nuclear material? That kind of stuff. Like who takes that stuff and what do they do with it? The suitcase bomb problem comes back like we had in the early 90s. I mean, look how many movies were made about that because that was a legit threat. That comes right back around if the lunatic who might use them leaves, then the lunatics who would use them see their opportunity. The question is, can they get in and get them? It's not like there's, closer to the Afghan war.
There's also the other concern is that Russia is not a monolith. It is
Right.
made up of 22 republics.
Yeah.
And I mean, look, this has been a problem for Russia for 200 years, roughly. Catherine the Great ushered in this massive expansion of the Russian Empire, and ever since then, it's every watcher of Russia and even Russians themselves are always contending with the fact that they grew too big, too quick, and much of their land is not. You're too isolated. It's too vast. The Russia is too vast of a country,
Right.
and it is separated by these huge stretches of land, which are completely inhospitable and cannot be tamed. And so there may come a time if there's a power vacuum in Moscow where these republics might say, I have more in common with my republic to my east and my west, my north and my south. I'm going to buddy up with them. We're going to create this new country, and then we're going to have our own little international relations with China or
Well,
Iran or
Lukashenko. There's this story in Newsweek that it just came out yesterday. Yeah, and his statement was, and I'll try to find the quote. Yeah, this is Lukashenko on Friday gave a stern message to former Soviet Union nations keeping their distance from Russia following its invasion of Ukraine. The countries of the post-Soviet space should be sincerely interested in rapprochement with the Union state if, of course, they want to preserve their sovereignty and independence. Like the idiocy of that statement, you better suck up to Russia if you want to stay sovereign. You better let them control your messaging and your military and your resources if you want independence and sovereignty. It's insane.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's their mentality. That really is their mentality. Everything is zero sum.
Right.
Everything is there's there's a top and there's a bottom.
Yeah, and you know which one you are, right? Well, and that's
Yeah,
that's
you
what
do know
Putin
which
said.
one you are.
Yeah, Johnny, did you see that last week? I don't know if you've read any of this stuff that Putin keeps saying, but he's basically saying that there are no non-colonial states. You are either a superpower or you're a colony. That's how the world
Wow.
works. That's how it is. That's how it's going to be. It's how it's always been. And basically, it ends up being a warning to everyone else if you're talking about, because the United States doesn't talk like that, nor do we have any interest in doing that. Ask Puerto Rico. It's taken us forever to make them a state. Like we're not interested, even in Iraq and Afghanistan, even in doing the most egregious stuff that the U.S. has done. We're not staying. We want you to up and run like a democracy, and then we'll talk to you because your people speak. And once your people speak, we have faith in the idea that once your people speak, even if we don't agree with them in mass, the general idea will at least agree on the rules. And that's what the liberal world order concept is about. But what Russia is saying is that no, that doesn't exist. It never existed, and it shouldn't be allowed to exist. And the worst thing is that these smaller countries that aren't Russia, China, or the United States, including, by the way, the UK, Canada, any of the EU nations, because the EU doesn't count as a superpower in the way he was talking, they're all satellite states of somebody. Just get used to the idea. The Germany and France are American satellite colonies. They don't exist. They don't have any rights. Yeah, and they won't.
His opinion of NATO and the EU is that they are only puppet states of which is
Right.
why they concentrate on America, because ultimately they think America as the leader of the free world, quote unquote, is pulling the strings in France and in Rome and in Warsaw and
If only.
everybody is is that they really do not understand that the world has moved on from that kind of the world doesn't operate
Right.
like that anymore. It's they really everything is zero sum.
Mhm.
The Russians have missed. You got to understand how, and everybody who's listening to me,
Right.
Russia has missed out on some of the most significant steps forward in global development, in nationhood, in identity, and social
Right.
programs, and kind of who we are and how we see ourselves. They missed the Renaissance. They missed the Age of Reason. They missed all sorts of
Right.
stuff, mainly because they were occupied at the time.
Right.
By
That'll do it.
Mongols or but they missed out on all of these. So they still think the world operates in basically a Napoleonic 20th century mentality of I can take land and I own it, and this is
Right. Yeah.
someone wins, someone loses. That's all there is.
Ironically, I would argue that it never really did. That one of the conversations about moving towards a democratic idea is that somehow that, one of the reasons why democracy actually started to flourish was because that this functioning, wars of attrition between two kingdoms didn't work either. They were always to the negative benefit. They always entailed deals made and treaties signed after, the fights that broke out didn't work. It wasn't a functional system, or it would have stuck around. And those who romanticize it, like the people here in the States who romanticize the Wild West when we're talking about like gun laws in the country, it's the same idiocy. They don't have any attachment to the awful reality of that situation. The irony is that these guys, that Putin in particular, wants an autocratic dictatorial system that he can participate in, but he wants to be in the West's sandbox economically and legally in terms of intellectual rights and material goods. Like I want all your rules to protect me, but not to pertain to me.
Yeah. Why do you think they spin out of control when they don't feel that they're being, and I'm doing air quotes here, respected? They're not being respected. Well, you know what? If you would step up and actually conduct yourself as a modern 21st century or even 20th century country, then maybe we would respect you a little bit more. But what you want all the benefits. You don't want to do the hard work. That's the problem. That's the problem. And it is not just in the power structure. It's funny. A Ukrainian taxi driver pointed out to me a few weeks ago. I was in Kiev. It was before I went to Odessa. He said to me, "Have you ever noticed that every single Russian fairy tale usually starts with somebody being granted wishes? Either a genie or a golden fish, where you put your finger in the golden fish's mouth and he grants you a wish. There's all these fairy tales."
Yeah, I'm so glad he said mouth, and I'm still upset. I'm so glad he said finger.
Have you heard the fairy tale, the golden fish? Well, anyhow, this Ukrainian taxi driver was saying to me, so many of their fairy tales start with this concept of being granted a wish. Because in their mind, and consider the source, this is a Ukrainian taxi driver who has said, because they don't want to do the hard work. They don't want to do the hard work. They want to be granted a wish, and then everything is better. And that's normally it turns out it bites them in the backside. But
no wonder they appeal to a certain type of mentality in the United States.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. That's the same thing. All right, I'm gonna let both of you guys go because you have lives, and so do our chat folks. And I appreciate you guys. I will be having a Monday morning live stream, folks, for 4th of July, but not an afternoon one because it's a holiday. So enjoy that, and I will see you, everybody else, on Monday morning. Thank you, Johnny Million, for hanging in there.
Thanks, y'all. On Wednesday.
Yep,
trying
absolutely.
To get to 1,000.
Stay safe out there, Philip.
Spread that around.
Yep, we're trying to get 1,000 on his to subscribe to his YouTube channel. So everybody hop over there and do that if you can.
I think I'm subscribed, but I'll double check.
And I know that you can. We trust it. And everybody else, I adore you. Thanks so much. See you guys later. Peace and be wild.
Happy 4th.
Bye. Cheers. I can't let them both go. Yeah, cheers. Okay, cool. And chat room, it's I think we're alone now. I just wanted to say thanks very much. Tomorrow again, I'm doing a live stream and a live show from Flappers at 5 p.m. Pacific time. It's a weird afternoon hour. They asked me to do it, and I was like, fine. I'm also doing the Dirty Show at the Improv Lab at 9 o'clock that night. So I've got 2 shows tomorrow. I'm basically cramming in weeks of shows in a couple of weeks of shows in one day, and then driving back here at night to get here before the crush of traffic on the 4th of July. So wish me luck. Randall was saying, can the U.S. send seed grain to Ukraine at no cost? No, not particular. And they don't need it. It's not seed grain that they have a problem with. It's the crop that they have a problem with. They've got plenty of seed. They will not run out of seed. It's the picked crop. And I'm sorry if audio is choppy as people come and go. It's one of the issues with Ecamm. We try. Anyways, appreciate you guys. I sound underwater. That's a very strange thing. I'm sure it's sweet. Audio, let me check, see what's up. Hiccups, can't read. That's so strange. All right, let me try a different picture. Give me 1 second. Back to here. Audio at all. Nope, there it's back. Okay. So there's definitely an audio issue on this computer. I apologize for that, guys. It attacked me right as the show was starting before I went live on the live stream. And since the audio going to Chicago is super crucial, I was flipping out trying to solve it and get Johnny on before the show started. Ugh. So anyways, I appreciate you guys. I will see you on Monday morning. And this is the week that I will, along the lines of what we were discussing over the last couple of weeks, be starting to put out shorter little clip videos just of me separate from things taken from the live stream. I want to do at least once a week. We'll see if I have the time and availability to do that. It'll be different than the stuff I do on the regular live stream, but hopefully it will, thematically close, but also a little bit of that man about town stuff. So we'll see. Can't hear you. Audio's rough. I'm sorry. That's a Twitch thing. Either way, we shall see. Audio's fine on YouTube, so it's not coming out of there. It's something else. So there you go. Peace, and I will see you guys next time. Hold on. I've got to turn on my theme song on this one. There we go. Yeah, there it goes. Excellent. All right. And this is me finding the right ending. Wish me luck.